episode of Serpent Temple Podcast. We are doing a Christmassy end of year happy holidays episode. We're going to have presents and we're going to be telling you our top 10 albums of 2022. It is snowing outside right now. We just had a wonderful Iranian meal. How are you doing,
great.
Floyd?
We've been interacting with a cat for the last hour as well.
Stray snow cat. That's right. But I have a surprise basically. For everyone on the podcast today, I have presents for all of us.
Ooh, this is exciting.
So Shem, if you'd like to step in front of the camera, if you can. This is for you.
Should I open it now?
Yeah, this is for you, Floyd, and I've got one for me as well.
You gotta open it one at a time.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, sick!
Shit!
This is legit.
Shit, son! Nice, thanks.
We do
Davey.
not condone bootleg merch. However, Bolt Thrower are no longer a band, so we're not stealing their money.
Oh, yes.
Amazing. Oh, we got all gone.
Sick.
I love it, man.
I'm glad it's not that thin. You know, you're there awkwardly trying to open packaging. Crazy.
5XL as well.
Sick.
So sick.
Do you want to know how many XL Floyd's is?
I don't know, too many.
Was that 7XL?
They have to throw 7 different shirts together.
To kill so many
I've got
Bolt
the
Thrower
whole
albums.
discography in one shirt. Amazing.
And I bought
I'm
myself.
literally wearing this Christmas Day.
Mate, I think we should all go to a gig wearing them.
We should all turn up to the... I know, not for anything.
I'm legit, like, I'm up for it.
Or just find someone that's dropped a tab of acid, and then I'll walk towards them wearing these shirts. That's amazing.
I love that artwork. That's so good.
Yeah.
That is legit.
Thank you, babe.
Hey, it's all good.
Thank you so much.
Happy holidays, guys. We now have matching Bolt Thrower shirts.
I was
so-
just saying, you got to find someone at a gig that's like dropped a tab of acid and just all walk together towards him just to wig him out.
That would be the most horrific trip ever. Just like loads of Bolt Thrower album art like undulating in front of your face.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool, man. They're awesome. Don't buy them. Don't buy bootleg merch. But I think it's different if it's a band that's like not active.
Yeah, kind of like defunct and, you know, notoriously known for not producing much official merch.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I have a lot of legit Bolt Thrower merch that I weirdly feel because I have literally got 10 legit Bolt Thrower
Yeah,
shirts.
you own a lot of legit merch though. don't you?
I
Yeah.
own so much Bolt Thrower merch that I've bought at Bolt Thrower shows. So I've given them a lot of money already. So hopefully they're not mad at me for this.
That's a logic I used to use for downloading albums. I felt like if I owned half of someone's discography, I was entitled
get
to
a pass.
download the other half.
You get a pass. I feel like Def and Bolt Thrower, I think, are like probably the most bootlegged bands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Definitely. Pun intended. All right. Should we move on? Oh, before we move on, we have a new feature
Yes.
for the Serpent Temple podcast. You can now write in to serpenttemplemail@gmail.com and you can leave us a message. And Shem will, at some point, read them out to us. You can send us voice notes. You can call in, so to speak, or just say whatever you want, and maybe we'll respond to it on the podcast. So feel free to do that, guys.
Nice bit of interaction.
Yeah. Good to have a bit of an interact.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to our top 10 albums of 2022?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Are we starting at the bottom or the top?
The big one. Oh, it's got to start at the bottom and work your way down, surely,
All right.
I would think.
Okay.
I'll let you go first.
Okay, so I'm going to be relatively quick.
Cool.
Just because I am. So number 10, Misery Index, Complete Control.
Oh.
Yeah, it dropped a while ago now. I had to check if it was this year. But it's a banger. It's a good album. I love Misery Index, guys. I think we saw them play Hellfest as well. It was really... Yeah, they were great. They were really, really solid. Like, big audience. Sounded huge. Love the new stuff.
I saw them at Damnation as well, and they did absolutely destroy it.
Nice.
Their smoke machine was broken, though. It was billowing smoke for like 20 minutes.
That's so Spinal Tap.
Yeah. But it was, no, you're absolutely right. I think that was a fantastic album as well. I actually, if I'm being honest, I thought that was last year.
Yeah, I thought it too, but I was like, hang on a second. Or maybe I have messed up. I'm pretty sure it was this year. Now I'm having doubts. What's your number 10?
So my number 10 was a bit of a wild card, and it was a late addition to the album of the year list. So it's a band called Spirit World, and the album is called Death Western. So it's kind of like Wild West inspired crossover, like hardcore death metal thrash, but the music actually has like some proper like Wild Western, like Good, Bad, and the Ugly style like interludes before you get like proper like sludgy two-step like hardcore riffs coming in.
Wow.
It's gimmicky, but it's done so well that it's actually like hyper entertaining. And I feel like, I'm so like the way I approach album of the year lists is I feel like there's always got to be a representative of each style of music, and I feel like there's always got to be one fun album in the list, and this is like my fun addition to the top 10 this year. But seriously, it took me by complete surprise, and it is such a fun, heavy, and just groovy album to listen to. So it was, and I only listened to it for the first time. I got recommended it by a friend a couple of weeks ago. He was just like, check this out, bruh. And I was just like, yeah, cool, I will. I was like, fuck, this is sick.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Fuck yeah. So my number 9 is, forgive the pronunciation, Slaegt, Goddess. I love I think it's the first track of the album, Deceived by an Amethyst. It's like, it's a real good, it's a good naming, and it's a good banger. It's a great album.
That's a great album. I love the track Fealty Thunder Whip. I think that's one of the most catchiest tracks.
That is insane memory right there. Because even though it's one of my albums of the year, I had to look up the track listing and be like, yes, that was the song that I loved the most.
No, yeah, that's a good addition. My number 9 is an album that was released somewhat recently as well by a well-renowned band, Sigh.
Oh, good choice.
The album Shiki, or Shiki, however you pronounce it. So sorry, probably butchering that. So this is their 12th album. So they have been going since the late 80s, early 90s.
12 albums.
One thing I really appreciate and impressed with as a band that's been going for that long is when they release new music that is still kind of fresh and still like kind of like full of vigor and passion. And the interesting thing about this album is they've got a few session musicians here. So they've got Mike Heller, who's the drummer for Fear Factory, and Frederick Leclerc, who is the current bassist for Creator, and who actually used to be the bassist for Dragon Force as well.
Oh, wow.
So he's filling in session guitar and bass duties. And it actually is quite cool because, I mean, Sigh are pretty much renowned for being quite an avant-garde band and being a bit out there. And this album still has its avant-garde moments. But with the addition of these members who are known for their kind of like their rhythmic capabilities and like bottom end on their instruments, it just gives it that much more heaviness, which is like quite unusual for like a Sigh album in the millennium. So it's kind of like a callback to their earlier, more black metal, like heavier, more extreme albums in the 90s. So kind of took me by surprise, and I was really impressed with that album. So hence why it takes my number 9 spot.
Nice. I guess that means it's number 8 time for me. Dystopian future movies, War of the Ether. One of my favorite interviews that we've done this year, talking to Caroline about this album, like really made me appreciate like the deeper meaning behind it, and I think that like really opened up the music even more for me. It's like a brilliant album, and I like it when music's doing more than just being itself. It's kind of speaking to a bigger thing and like opening up a world of truth. I don't know how to put it, but it was, I think it was a powerful moment for me. So I really want to immortalize it in my end of year list. So that's my number 8.
Oh, nice. I think it's always I think I've always kind of gravitated towards music where like the emotion of the artist is so clearly on display.
Yeah, totally.
And I feel like it's something that's so easy to connect to, even if you've had different experiences and maybe cannot relate completely, but at the same time, like just instantly I'm thinking of an artist like Lingua Ignota, for example.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's totally just like something that is so emotionally raw and bare. It's hard not to appreciate the art form. A solid choice. My number 8 is another bit of a wild card for me because it's another band I wasn't familiar with until this year. It's Kardashev with the album Liminal Right.
That is a sick album.
It's fucking great.
They're so good. That like Spotify kept trying to force them on me, but in a good way, because I'd be listening to like a playlist, I'd be like, "What is this song? This is so good," and it would be Kardashev. Yeah. And I was like, "Who are these guys?" And yeah, they're really fucking good. Yeah.
What I like about the album is, I think I've been quite open in the past about I'm not the biggest fan of what is deemed to be progressive metal. And I'm not talking about progressive in the true form. I'm thinking what is kind of mutated into what is referred to as progressive metal. Because I just feel it can be a bit too clinical and sterile at times. But what I do love is when you've got a band like Kardashev, who remind me a lot of another band, Nea Bliviscaris from New Zealand.
Oh yeah, I love that band.
Who do a great job of kind of combining lots of different elements of black and death metal. But it's got that progressive sheen and musicianship to it, but it's done in a way where it doesn't lose like the human element of the music.
It's got great energy.
And exactly, like, and the energy of the album is very, like, emotionally kind of, like, raw. There's a lot of, like, gravitas to the album. And I just thought it was just really compelling. And I just thought it kind of just hit me out of left field. And I was thinking, like, fuck, this is actually really well-constructed music. And it has the emotional weight to it, which is what I also love so much in music as well. So that's my number 8.
Sick one. My number 7 is Innumerable Forms, Philosophical Collapse. That was a heavy fucking album. I really, really like. Do you need to cough, don't you?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I thought you were about to like. I thought you were trying to hold one in. Sorry. Anyway, my number 7 is Innumerable Forms, Philosophical Collapse. This was such a heavy album. I really, really liked it. I was listening to this like over and over and over again the week we were going to review it, and I just really, really dug it. It's yeah, like this year and just generally doing Serpent Temple has made me appreciate new music so much more, because we've been doing like mostly new music albums every week now instead of having one new, one mid, one old. And I think it's a great thing that we've started doing that, because I never listened to so much new music. And I've always been aware of Innumerable Forms. I've always known like I kind of like them, but this like made me properly delve into them, and I really enjoyed it.
I agree with you. But firstly, that album is fantastic. But secondly, I think it's a better format just doing new music, because I feel like it just kind of spreads that net a bit more and allows us to listen to more new kind of albums. One thing I will say, I didn't need to cough that time. The reason why I'm coughing, I'm going to give the context of this backstory, just so people don't think that I'm being inconsiderate and spreading my germs around. I was given an out-of-date Linctus by my sister that my mum had made, and it had fermented and turned into pure alcohol and burned my throat and vocal cords, and it's still recovering. So that's why my voice is hoarse and I'm coughing frequently.
Bearing in mind you've never sullied your body with alcohol, so
No,
that must have
true.
been really traumatic.
But that's a good choice in number 7. My number 7 is a relatively well-renowned artist who's actually just been announced as the final headliner for Bloodstock this year.
Oh.
It's Meshuggah with Immutable.
Oh, interesting.
So this one's been a bit of a slow grower for me, because I'm more of a fan of a lot of the earlier Meshuggah work, like
Me
Destroy,
too.
Raise, Improve,
Yeah.
Chaos Sphere. But like, there's something about this album that kind of takes the grooviness of albums like Nothing, and kind of just has more of a sense of maturity to it, in my opinion. Like, there's a great track on this album called Black Cathedral, which is essentially like a black metal track, and it's only kind of like a small interlude, but it's like so cool and different from what Meshuggah have done in the past. And I just think, you know, going back to my point about Sigh, you know, Meshuggah are another band that have been around the block for a while. And I think, you know, going back to that point, I think it's just so impressive that the band continues to release music that is still fresh. And, you know, and they've kind of done it. You know, it's so easy for bands, like, I'll just say it because they're never going to fucking listen to the podcast. Listen to a band like Metallica, for example, that's been releasing nothing but shite for, like, the last 20 years. Like, I don't know if you heard the new Metallica song.
No.
Fucking dreadful.
Really? Everyone's been, like, talking it up.
Did you see the new Godsmack single beat it in the charts?
What did you say, the new Godsmack single beat in the charts?
That's
Well, there you go.
amazing. That's like England being knocked out of the World Cup.
So that's why Meshuggah takes my number 7 spot.
Fair enough. My number 6 is Terzij der Horde. In One of These, I Am Your Enemy. I loved this album. It was a really good album for me to listen to because A, the vocals rocked, the lyrics rocked, and they like really inspired me to start like kind of getting back into writing lyrics for the next Lowen album. And that really helped because I kind of needed that like inspirational kick, and this delivered it to me in the way that I really needed at the time. And I love the guys. Like I follow them on Instagram now, and they just seem like really good people. They're really into like educating. You know, when you see a band, you like the music, and then you find out they're good guys. It's one of those like that really adds to the appreciation I have of the music. And it was just a good album. I loved the cover of it too. The artwork rocks.
Is that like the proper post-apocalyptic kind of like, yeah? That was a great little release, that one. It was, and I think they're a band that deserve a bit more attention because they've been kind of grinding away on the underground for a while. And I think I remember when we reviewed the album at the time that I saw them at Roadburn like the year that I went, and I just thought they were absolutely amazing.
Cool.
So they know they could definitely bring it live as well.
Yeah, I
on record.
really want to see them live. I'd
Oh, that's so
love
good.
to see them live. What's your number 6?
My number 6 is continuing the trend of long-running bands, because I'm just old school like that, is Immolation, Acts of God.
Hell yeah!
Now, Immolation are one of the 3 big bands that I like that all end with the same
Sure.
suffix, indiation. You got suffocation, immolation, and, well, I was actually going to say incantation, but they've been a bit problematic recently, so I'm not much
Oh
of a
God,
fan.
have they? I didn't know.
There's some shit about incantation, I'm sure.
Oh,
Don't
fuck.
quote me on that, but
That's a shame because they're doing that split with Blood.
yeah. Oh yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, Blood and incantation doing
Yeah.
the split.
Oh well, I guess I'm not listening to the split.
I'm not sure about that. So
I'll
we
have to
might
double check
do a check-in on that. But anyway, but specifically Suffocation and Immolation were the main 2 anyway.
Cool.
And they're both from New York, and they're both just legendary, iconic heritage death metal bands from that scene. And Immolation kind of, they kind of stand on their own 2 feet in the scene. They've got a distinct style, the whole kind of really disharmonic riffs that they do, just the layer in, and just the way the songs are constructed is just so malevolent and evil sounding. And what I love as well is when you get a death metal band that's been going around for years, and you get an album with newer production, and it sounds as raw as some of the older material should have sounded. Because sometimes the production can let it down.
Yeah.
I'm not insulting things like the Morris sound or the Scott Burns style, which was really seminal in the 90s, but it did lack a lot of that oomph and power that a lot of newer metal album productions have. But this album is fantastic. It's just classic Immolation, really, but it's just a worthwhile addition to their already stellar discography.
I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. Immolation is in my top 10.
Ooh.
They were actually one of my top played artists on Spotify this year because they are the go-to band I play in the gym. It's
sick.
such good workout music, and it's just so good. It's so good. I think I listen to them every single day in summer. I really fucking love that album. My number 5 is not Immolation. It's Imperial Triumphant's Spirit of Ecstasy, which was a mad album.
That was wild.
I love that album. It's really, I think it's a perfect number 5 album because it wasn't my favorite album that came out this year, but it was almost my favorite album that came out this year. The experimental jazz New York thing they do, coupled with this really strong image and sort of lore that they've cultivated. I really like that. It's like the heavy metal Great Gatsby, which is cool. It's really exploring that hubris of Western American society in a very American Psycho, but with cool masks way. And I love a good cool mask.
Yeah, that's a very solid and worthwhile choice. And I think as well, I've got to give a shout out to Kenny Grahowski, the drummer. I mean, Thomas Harker himself has said that he is one of the most impressive drummers in today's scene, which I think is testament to learn how good he is. But he really is, excuse me, the driving force behind the rhythms of that band, because I feel like that music would kind of fall apart at the seams if it didn't have that strong backbone, the drumming. But they work so cohesively as a unit, and it's just such controlled chaos. So yeah, that's a very solid choice.
I also erroneously attributed Kenny Grahowski as I think the saxophonist on
Oh,
that album.
it was actually Kenny G.
It was
the
actually
legendary,
the Kenny G. So my bad if you ever go back to that review. I was wrong. It's the Kenny G.
So my number 5 is, and this is the last one, is another band that I've been a fan of for a while that I had to include in the list, which is Origin,
Oh, that's a good. That almost made it into my number 10.
with the album Chaosmos.
Yes.
Now, what I like about Origin is I feel like they are one of the exceptions in the tech death scene that stand out from the crowd and are not overly kind of wanky and sterile. I think Necrophagists are often credited as one of the bands that are are at the forefront of the tech death scene and being great musicians. But I feel like Origin are actually so bonkers and so fucking fast and frenetic and skilled as musicians. The drummer, John Longstreth, in my opinion, is the best drummer in metal, hands down. And I think just, their compositions are just wild for how fast they play, how many notes they hit. I think it's incredible how the songs are still groovy, catchy, and just entertaining to listen to. So, and this album is just everything that's good about the band.
Solid choice. My number 4 is Immolation, Acts of God, which we've covered. They're one of my favorite bands. I didn't even realize until Spotify was like, "You've played this so much, it's worrying." So yeah, fucking great album. I hope I get to see them live.
Yeah, it's a shame actually, because I think were they playing the UK Death Fest, but we were late. I think we had something else going on, so we couldn't make it in time to watch them.
Yeah, we saw what's his name backstage.
Oh, Ross Dolan.
Ross, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was that the guy from Immolation?
Yeah.
Shit. Oh god, that shows how with it I am when we go.
So my number 4 is from a relatively new band that's made a lot of waves in the death metal scene this year, and it's Undeath with the time "It's time, ellipses, to rise from the grave."
Nice.
Now, what I love about this album is that it is kind of like an homage to a lot of the bands I've already mentioned on this list. But like, it's kind of like, you know, an homage to the 90s death metal sound and a lot of things that made death metal so kind of like vital and invigorating and exciting at the time. But it's kind of wrapped up in like a 2022 wrapper and presented in a way that's just totally fresh and exciting. And they seem like cool people as well. Like, just everything about the album is just really fucking gnarly, in my opinion. And I think it deserves the lauding.
Lord, not
What's
Lord.
the word I'm looking for?
Adulation?
That's good. We'll go for that. Yeah. It deserves the adulation and the plaudits.
Plaudits.
That's the word I was looking for. That it's getting across the metal sphere this year, because I think that's going to make a lot of album of the year lists.
Yeah, totally. It was great. I think I really like how you said 2022 rapper.
Okay.
I like that. That's
I think I got.
What was that?
2022 rapper. Yeah.
I probably said rapper because I've got Jakeman's throat lozenges
Thinking
rappers
of
on
the
my mind.
sweets, not of the genre guy performers and lady. Anyway, number 3 is Ithaca, They Fear Us, because
Ooh, nice.
I loved that album. I love Jamila. She's amazing. Low-key, extremely inspired by her. I saw her play like a pub in London. I saw her play the Unicorn many years ago, and I was like, damn, she's amazing. She does not give a fuck. She's doing her thing. And in this album, like, she is running with that, and it's so good. It kind of reminded me at times of the Turnstile album, which also made my top 10 list last year. There's like some really beautiful like pop-like bits. There's some groovy bits. There's some heavy as fuck bits. It's so good. I hope I get to see them again soon as well.
That album kind of harkens back to a lot of old school aspects of like the hardcore and early metalcore scene that made me fall in love with it to begin with. Like, I feel like there's a good heaping of Deftones in there as well.
Yeah, totally.
That I think really kind of like resonates with me. So I think that is a very good choice.
What is your number 3?
So my number 3 is Wormrot Hiss.
Oh yeah, that's a great album.
Now it's a bit of a bittersweet one, because I think it is the forgive me, I haven't made a note of the vocalist's name, but the vocalist who's now departed the band.
Oh,
I think they are going to still continue as a band, but it's his last album with them. Apologies.
He moves away from the microphone to cough.
And it's do you know what? I often say when I'm talking about grindcore that I think it is one of the most misrepresented genres in the entire heavy music scene. I think it's often mislabeled. I think sometimes when people think of grindcore, they're actually thinking of shit like porno grind and gore grind.
Yeah.
And I think they don't realize that grindcore is actually a really kind of like potent, like socio-political genre that is actually tackling a lot of good topics and has some really good fucking relevant, aggressive music. And a lot of variety sometimes, and I think Wormrot exemplified that perfectly on this album. There's a lot of tracks on here that have got real elements of thrash, which has always been a big component of grindcore anyway, but like a lot of progressive elements. Like there's some post-hardcore in there, there's some really interesting melodies, there's some violin, there's some string sections which are used to stunning effect in the album. So I think it's just a really dynamic and kind of fulfilling album for a listener and anybody that appreciates any form of heavy music.
Agreed. Really solid choice. So my number 2 choice is probably the opposite of Wormrot. It is Graveline's Communion.
Oh, nice.
Yes. I'm a long-term fan of Gravelines. I love every member of that band as well. And I love the vocals a lot. It's like really rare that I find doom that's not like really pentatonic and like overly. It's kind of bluesy, but in a like very suicidally depressive way, which I appreciate. That's the more like acid bath style that I prefer to the like upbeat kind of like dinosaur by a river space shit. I don't know. I'm not really putting this very well. Anyway, this album fucking rocks. I've been watching them live for many, many years. I really love the subject matter. It's all about parasites. All the lyrics are like so well researched. I really appreciate that. When I went to South America recently, I just like afterwards sent Jake, the singer, like a bunch of bug pictures because there were loads of cool bugs and parasites and stuff. And yeah, like this album was beautiful. It was like I was waiting for a Gravelines album for a few years, and this was exactly what I needed. And it really like hit that spot, and I've been listening to it
I
a
feel
lot.
like they really stepped up their game with this album.
Totally.
And I agree with you. I think Jake is an absolutely fantastic vocalist. I think going back to my earlier point about artists like Lingua Ignota, I think he wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Totally.
And I think it comes through in the music. And I think
raw
it's
as
just,
fuck.
it's
Yeah.
just... And they're fantastic live as well.
Yeah, so good live. And like, you know, Ollie's guitars are amazing. Matt's bass is great. Drumming's like always perfect. Like the band all together come together really well. And they just have this like sweet sadness in the music that's like mixed with this like crushing heaviness. It's like the epitome of melancholy in doom, and it like hits it. So I'm not really a funeral doom guy. Like I'm not so into the funeral doom that's like very slow and shrieky, but this is the funeral doom that I like.
Yeah.
This is definitely like modern funeral doom with 2022 rapper, as you would say. This is my equivalent of going to the funeral and being like hearing Jake's voice in my head. And
What's it? Is it heavy gloom they refer to it as?
is that, maybe it is. That's a good way of putting it. Heavy gloom. I like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that is a very solid choice, and I think the epitome of melancholy is the perfect way to summarize them and that album.
Yes.
My number 2, I'm actually going to skip over because it's your number 1.
Oh shit.
Well, it's just like, well, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I might know what your number 1 is, so I'm going to skip over.
Anyone who knows me knows what my number 1 is, because I have not shut up about this album to anyone I know. My number 1 is Tzompantli. Yay! And I'm hopefully not going to butcher the album name. It's Tlazcatlitsidli.
See, that's why I didn't announce
Yes!
it.
Fuck yes.
That's
Dare you! I tried. Hang on.
That's why I didn't announce it as my number 2 to let Nina
You never
pronounce
take
it.
the fall.
Yeah.
And boy, did I fall. It's Tlazcatlitsidli.
No, it's getting worse.
How dare you! You try and say it. It's a beautiful word. I'm so sorry I'm butchering it.
Tlaxcala.
That was actually pretty good.
That was pretty good. Tlazcatlitsidli. Tlazcatlitsidli. Okay. Let's keep that bit. Let's not edit. I'm joking. Please edit that out. Okay. I did my best. I'm so sorry, Tzompantli. I fucking love this album. This album is my album of like the past 5 years.
So sick.
We have played this album so many times. Like, we've blasted it constantly. It is such a good album to play when you're in the car and you just turn it up really loud and you drive through a residential area. There's people on the street, they're like, what the fuck? If I remember correctly, Tzompantli means skull rack. That is fucking sick. This whole, like, the whole concept of the album, of the band, of like this, the decolonization aspects, the whole like taking back your history. I mean, I was in South America recently, and every single time I walked past any tour guide, they were like, and then the Spanish would cut off people's hands if they wore their traditional clothing, and they'd kill you if you dared to speak your original language. So I get it. Like, I totally get why making this kind of music is heavy and powerful, and boy, can you hear it. It's like it's so groovy, it's so heavy, I like every single song is beautiful. It's like so well crafted. I listen to this album and like I see like wars playing out in my head and like immense like monuments being built and rituals being had, and yeah, it's fucking glorious album. One of the best in many years.
I don't think there's much else I can add to that, but yeah, I think you summed that up perfectly there. It is crushingly brutal and heavy, and I love just the connection to like the whole like some like the Aztec instrumentation on the album and stuff.
Oh yeah, the death
like
whistle.
The death whistles and stuff. It's just
Yeah.
so
So
fucking
cool.
unbelievably cool and heavy. Like,
Hell
it's
yeah.
just, well, yeah, there's nothing more I can say about it. The only thing I will say is, if you want a deep dive into it and an analysis behind a lot of the song titles and stuff, we did do a really deep dive on the album, and it is worth a watch if you want to hear more about why we love that album so much.
Yes, go and follow that band on Instagram. Listen to this album that I'm not going to try and say the name of again. The band is called Tzompantli. You will not be disappointed. If you don't like the album, tell me so that I can admonish you publicly. Thank you. What is your number one?
My number one is, and this is actually the second year in a row that, funnily enough, a black metal album has made my number one.
Oh.
So it's Black Braid with the album Black Braid 1.
I need to listen to this album. I've
So-
so much hype around it.
So when we were talking, when I was talking to you about this album, or when we're talking like about album of the year lists the other day, like last time I saw you, I think the band you were thinking of was Nchochwen, who we also reviewed this year.
Yeah.
Who also have a similar thing about having that connection to like the Native American kind of like history. But this album also, I believe, the main man behind the project is of that origin, and he is just completely like what's interesting about it is it's not gimmicky.
Yeah.
Like, the music is actually black metal. Like, it's got more in common with, and I know this band has had their issues, but a band like Agalok, for example,
Oh, yeah.
like it's just like really like melancholic and really beautiful melodies, like interwoven with just like super like just fucking like emotive tremolo picking, and like it's everything that's great about black metal. And I think what really adds to it is actually the lyricism, because obviously the lyrics are about like some of this the fucking horrific shit that's happened to those people, and just and being connected to that mythology and having that link to it. So it's just a really easy album for me to listen to, because it just kind of, in my opinion, is everything that's great about the black metal genre without getting caught in a lot of the common trappings of the genre that make it hard to listen to and support.
Being racist.
Yeah. I was trying to put it diplomatically.
Yeah, it's
But
always a pleasure when bands aren't racist, isn't it?
But
always
it's a
bonus.
really beautiful album. The compositions are great. The instrumentals are fantastic in it as well. There's 2 instrumentals on the album that really set the scene, and that's probably the only time in the album that you kind of hear the music having like a bit more of a connection to the kind of like the Native American kind of like mythology and history. But like the rest of the album, it's just a blistering, like melodic, emotive black metal kind of masterpiece, and I just really, really enjoyed it.
Amazing.
That's why it took my top spot.
Hell yeah, I'm going to check that out. You sold it
It's
to
really
me.
good.
Nice. I think that tops off our top 10.
Yes, I do want to give an honourable mention and a shout out to a band which is actually unfortunately no more, and that's Malignant Altar.
Wait, did they break up?
They broke up, yeah, sadly. It was due to
No.
allegedly health reasons and just a few things
Oh.
that's outside of their control. So the band is still on good terms, and they say, hey, look, listen, something may happen some point down the line if the stars are aligned. But their album, Realm of Exquisite Morbidity,
So good.
which I was going to put on the top 10, but that came out December 2021.
Right.
But that was a fucking fantastic album. Like, that is one of the best death metal albums of this decade. Probably of this millennium.
Damn.
I don't remember, we're only 22 years into it.
But
But
still,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, who
But no,
knows?
so shout out to that band. And
Shout
like,
out.
it's hopefully some point down the line they'll get back together. But
Fingers crossed. Maybe we'll get an AI version of Malignant now. So.
potentially, yeah.
Malignant AI term.
Yeah. Nice.
My honourable mentions are going to be to Tyrannus, Unslayable. We had them on the podcast a few months
nice,
ago.
yeah.
It was a great album, great band, great people, and Church of the Cosmic Skull, There Is No Time, because I love that. I love that album. There was just no room on my top 10, so I'm cheating and I'm adding these guys.
That's the problem, isn't it? You go online and you see people that have done like top 200s and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not fucking listening to 200 albums this year. I don't think I've listened to 200 albums.
I don't think I've listened to 200 bands in my whole life. I mean, I
Yeah.
have, but it doesn't feel that way. Yeah.
No,
I
but-
think we were in a top 200 when Crypta came out, and then we were like number 95, and I was like, thank God we're not in the above 100.
Yeah. Yeah, because isn't that like most of the releases that year?
Yeah, I was like, well, at least we're below 100s. That's good.
That's good. I think that rounds out the top 10 album of the year list pretty well.
That was fun. Can't wait till next year.
No, yeah, let's see how it goes. I think there's a few big albums lined up for next year.
Oh, yes. I
Yeah,
can't
so we'll see.
wait. I cannot wait. So thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe so that we can make big dollar on the podcast. And feel free to write into serpenttemplemale@gmail.com. It's a lot of mail in that sentence. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Happy holidays. Enjoy your Decembers.
Till next time.